On the day the Roman Empire officially died, the most dangerous thing the average citizen faced wasn't a barbarian sword. It was the crushing boredom of waiting in line for bread. There was no explosion. The sky didn't turn black. The only thing that actually collapsed was a stack of unpaid tax forms in a damp office in Ravenna. Hey guys, tonight we begin with the end. Or rather, the very long, very slow, and surprisingly quiet end of what we like to call the Roman Empire. When we think of the fall of Rome, Hollywood usually provides us with a specific visual language. We imagine fire. We imagine marble columns toppling over in slow motion, accompanied by a Hans Zimmer score. We picture Visigoths with excellent cardiovascular health storming the gates, while decadence and debauchery play out in golden palaces. We expect a singular, catastrophic moment, a car crash of civilization where everything went from empire to dark ages in a single Tuesday afternoon. But the reality, as is usually the case with human history, was far more mundane. It was less of a crash and more of a slow leak in a tire that no one could afford to patch. It was a centuries-long process of crumbling infrastructure, inflation, bad weather, and the gradual realization that the postman had stopped coming. Tonight, we aren't going to look at the emperors or the generals. We aren't going to discuss the grand treaties or the burning of libraries. Instead, we are going to focus on the texture of the decline. We are going to inhabit the body of a citizen living in a city that is too big for its current population, walking down streets that haven't been swept in 40 years. We are going to explore the dampness of the walls, the itchiness of the wool, and the pervasive, heavy sense of waiting for something, anything, to happen. It is a story not of tragedy, but of fatigue. The empire didn't explode, it just got very, very tired, lay down on an uncomfortable couch, and decided not to get up again. So, let's go there. Let's go to the gray, drizzly reality of the You are standing in the middle of a street in Ravenna. It is the year 476 AD, though you wouldn't know it as that. To you, it is just another gray Tuesday in a long string of gray Tuesdays. The first thing you notice is the air. It is heavy, saturated with a moisture that feels less like rain and more like a wet towel draped over your face. The sky is a flat, featureless sheet of slate gray pressing down on the rooftops. It isn't storming, that would be too exciting. It is simply drizzling, a constant fine mist that has been falling for what feels like 3 weeks. You look down at your feet. The legendary Roman roads, the engineering marvels that connected the known world, are here. But they have seen better days. The large, flat paving stones are slick with a mixture of mud, moss, and animal refuse. Between the stones, where there should be tight, seamless mortar, there are gaps. In these gaps, stubborn weeds have taken hold, sickly green things that cling to life despite the lack of sunlight. Step forward. Your sandal lands on a loose paver. It shifts with a dull clunk, causing a small geyser of cold, brown water to squirt up between your toes. This is the defining sensation of the late empire. The feeling of cold, dirty water touching your skin when you least expect it. Look around you. You are in an urban center, but it feels hollow. To your left is a tenement building, an insula. It rises 4 stories high, a towering block of brick and timber. 50 years ago, this building would have been bustling with shouting merchants, crying babies, and the smell of cooking garlic. Now, it is quiet. The plaster on the exterior wall is peeling away in large, scaly flakes, revealing the raw, red brick underneath. It looks like a sunburn that is slowly healing. The windows on the upper floors are dark. Some are shuttered with rotting wood that bangs softly against the frame in the gentle wind. Thump, thump, thump. Other windows are just gaping black holes, staring out like missing teeth. There is a smell here that you cannot escape. It is not an overpowering stench, but a background note, like the hum of a refrigerator you've stopped noticing. It is the smell of wet stone, old wood smoke, and stagnant water. The elaborate sewer systems, the cloaca maxima of the great cities, are clogged with silt. The water doesn't flow away anymore. It just sits in the gutters, turning a dark, iridescent green. You walk past a public fountain. In the glory days, this would have been a statue of Neptune pouring endless, crystal-clear water from an urn. Now, the pipe is dry. Neptune's nose has broken off, leaving him with a jagged, flat face. The basin of the fountain is filled not with water, but with drift of dead brown leaves and a broken clay pot. It is a monument to a utility bill that hasn't been paid in a century. The geography of the city feels shrunken. The boundaries are closing in. You can see the city walls in the distance, looming high and thick. They are the only things that are well maintained. While the library roof collapses and the bathhouse heaters fail, the walls are constantly patched. They are a constant reminder that the world outside is getting closer. But inside the walls, it is just damp. The fog curls around the corners of the buildings, obscuring the ends of the streets so that the world seems to fade into nothingness just a block away. You are walking through a ghost story while you are still alive. You stop walking for a moment to adjust your cloak, and we become acutely aware of what you are wearing. History books show us Romans in pristine white togas, draped elegantly over one shoulder. That is not you. That was never you. You are wearing the uniform of survival, and frankly, it is incredibly uncomfortable. Let's start with the base layer. You are wearing a tunic. It was once an off-white linen, but after years of washing in river water with harsh lye soap, it has settled into a permanent color of oatmeal beige. The fabric is thick and stiff. It doesn't glide over your skin. It abrades it. Under the arms and around the neck, the linen has bunched up. It is slightly damp from your own sweat and the humidity of the air. It clings to you in all the wrong places. There is a small hole near the hem of the tunic, unraveling slowly. A loose thread dangling against your knee that tickles you every time you take a step. Over the tunic, because the temperature is permanently stuck at a clammy 50 degrees Fahrenheit, or about 10 degrees Celsius, you are wearing a heavy wool cloak. This is not the soft merino wool of a modern department store. This is rough, raw wool, still rich with the natural oils of the sheep. It smells distinctly of wet animal, a musky barnyard scent that intensifies as the rain seeps into the fibers. The cloak is heavy. It weighs down on your shoulders, a physical burden that makes your posture slump forward. It is fastened at your right shoulder with a bronze fibula, a brooch that works like a safety pin. The pin is slightly bent, and the metal has turned green with verdigris. Every now and then, if you move your arm too quickly, the pin rotates and the cold metal pokes into your collarbone. You adjust the cloak, pulling it tighter to keep the wind out, but the wool is itchy. It scratches against your neck, leaving a red, irritated line along your jaw. It is a constant, low-level annoyance, like a tag in a shirt that you can't cut out. Now, look down at your legs. You are wearing braca, trousers. The ancestors would have called them barbarian fashion, but you don't care about philosophy. You care about not freezing. They are baggy, made of scratchy felt, and tied at the waist with a simple rope that digs into your stomach. They gather at the ankles, tucked into socks. Yes, socks with sandals. This is the height of late Roman fashion and practicality. Your socks are knitted wool, thick and shapeless. They have lost their elasticity, so they slide down your ankles, bunching up inside your footwear. And the footwear itself, these are caligae of the lowest order. Heavy leather soles studded with iron hobnails. When you walk on the stone, they make a sharp, rhythmic. But when you step into the mud, the sound changes to a wet, sucking. The leather straps are stiff with age and water damage. One strap cuts across the top of your foot, rubbing against a blister that has been there for days. Every step is a negotiation between the pain in your blister and the need to move forward. The leather has soaked through, so your wool socks are wet. Not soaking wet, just damp enough to make your toes feel numb and pruned. You can feel the cold of the stones coming up through the soles of your sandals. It travels up your shins, settling in your knees, making them ache with a dull throb. This is the physical reality of the era. You are never quite dry, you are never quite warm, and something is always slightly itchy. You reach down to your belt, a strip of cracked leather. Hanging from it is a small pouch. It feels light, too light. Inside, there are a few copper coins, nummy, so debased and devalued that they are practically washers. They jingle softly against a small iron knife that is duller than a butter spreader. This is your inventory. A scratching cloak, wet socks, a blister, and a pocket full of worthless change. You aren't a warrior of the Legion. You are just a person trying to walk to the market without twisting an ankle on a broken empire. You shift your weather from one wet foot to the other. The blister on your toe gives a sharp, hot throb of protest, but you ignore it. You have to ignore it, because you are currently engaged in the most essential, widespread, and enduring activity of the late Roman Empire. You are waiting in line. This is the daily routine. The glory of Rome wasn't built in a day, but the end of Rome seems to be spent entirely in a queue. You are standing in the shadow of the Basilica, a massive administrative hall that once gleamed with polished marble. Now the marble is streaked with soot from the torches, and the bottom 3 feet of the wall are stained with mud and the grime of 10,000 people leaning against it, just like you are. You are here for the annona, the grain dole, the state-subsidized bread distribution. It is the only reason the city hasn't eaten itself alive yet. The line stretches down the street, a snake of brown and gray tunics. There is no urgency here. No one is pushing. No one is shouting. The energy is one of collective resignation. It is the mood of a waiting room at the Department of Motor Vehicles, but extended over an entire lifetime. You look at the back of the man's head in front of you. He has a bald spot the size of a saucer, shiny with sweat despite the chill. You watch a single, fat louse crawl slowly across the collar of his tunic. It moves with agonizing slowness, navigating the rough terrain of the wool. You watch it for a full minute. This is your entertainment. This is the highlight of your morning. To your left, a shopkeeper is pulling up the shutters of his stall. It creates a sound, wood against stone, that sets your teeth on edge. He moves with the lethargy of someone who knows he isn't going to sell anything today. You watch him arrange his wares. He has 3 turnips. They are small, shriveled things, looking like clenched fists that gave up the fight. Next to them, a pile of onions that are starting to sprout green shoots, desperate to return to the earth. He arranges them in a triangle. Then he scratches his nose and rearranges them in a line. This is the economy in action, moving vegetables around to make them look like dinner. Finally, the line shuffles forward. One step, squish, clack. You are now close enough to hear the transaction at the front. It is a bureaucracy of crumbs. There is a table set up, manned by an official who looks even more tired than you feel. He has a wax tablet in front of him and a bronze stylus. He is checking names. He is checking tokens. This is the analog equivalent of a computer system that is permanently buffering. He argues with an old woman about the validity of her tessera, her wooden ticket. "This is from the previous indiction," he says, his voice flat, devoid of malice or sympathy. "It's expired." "It's all I have," she replies. She doesn't yell. She just states it as a fact. They stare at each other. The silence stretches. A dog somewhere 3 streets over. Eventually, he waves her through anyway, too exhausted to enforce the rules of an emperor who hasn't visited the city in 20 years. It is your turn. You step up to the table. The smell hits you now. The smell of the bakery behind the official. It isn't the warm, buttery smell of a modern pastry shop. It is a heavy, sour smell of fermenting yeast and charred crust. You hand over your token. The official takes it. He looks at it. He looks at you. He scratches his chin with the blunt end of the stylus. The sound is rough, rich, rich, rich. He makes a mark on his wax tablet, peeling up a curl of gray wax. He turns and hands you your ration. 2 loaves. Let's talk about this bread. It is round, dense, and incredibly heavy. If you dropped it on your foot, it would bruise. It is a dark brown color, made from unrefined spelt flour. But it's not just flour. As you take the loaf, you can feel the texture of the crust. It is rough, like sandpaper. You know that inside, the flour has been cut with whatever was available to bulk it up. Sawdust? Maybe. Chalk? Possibly. But definitely grit. The millstones that ground this flour are old and crumbling, shedding tiny fragments of stone into the mix. This is why everyone over the age of 30 smiles with their lips closed. This bread is a slow-motion file for your teeth. Every meal is a microscopic act of dentistry that wears your enamel down to the nerve. You tuck the warmish loaves into the fold of your cloak, clutching them against your chest for a stealing moment of heat. This is your radiator. Now, the workday begins. But you don't go to an office. You don't go to a factory. You simply drift. You walk towards the workshops near the river, hoping for day labor. The sound of the city is muted. There is no roar of traffic, no hum of machinery. Just the sound of footsteps, the dripping of water from eaves, and the occasional sharp clang of a blacksmith's hammer. Clang. Clang. Even the blacksmith sounds bored. You arrive at a construction site. They are repairing a wall that collapsed last winter. You stand there for an hour, watching. 3 men are lifting a stone. They heave it up, grunt, and set it down. Then they stop. They look at the stone. They talk about the stone. They lean on their shovels. You ask the foreman if they need hands. He looks you up and down, chewing on a piece of straw. He doesn't say no. He just shakes his head slowly, a gesture that implies that hiring you would require paperwork he doesn't have the energy to fill out. So you keep walking. You pass a money changer's table. This is where the real comedy happens. You stop to watch an argument. A merchant is trying to pay with a bag of numi, copper coins. "I can't take these," the money changer says, pinching one of the coins between two fingers with disdain. "This is trash. It's 98% lead with a copper wash, the silver washed off in the rain." "It has the emperor's face on it," the merchant argues. "Which emperor?" the money changer asks. He squints at the coin. "We haven't had this one for 6 months. He was strangled. This currency is literally dead money." This is the financial reality of your life. The money in your pocket is melting away faster than ice. You are living in an economy that runs on barter, favors, and IOUs. You remember a time when a silver coin could buy a pig. Now you need a wheelbarrow of copper to buy a radish. So you don't buy anything. You don't sell anything. You just exist. You walk the perimeter of your life, checking for leaks. You head home early. There is no point in staying out. The sky is getting darker, turning from slate gray to a bruised purple. The wind is picking up, whistling through the empty arches of the aqueduct. You return to your room. You sit on a 3-legged stool that wobbles every time you breathe. You take out your knife. You take your stone-heavy bread. You begin to saw through the crust. Saw, saw, crunch. You chew slowly, carefully navigating the grit. You stare at the wall, where a patch of damp mold is slowly expanding in the shape of a map of Africa. You watch it. You listen to the rain start to fall harder outside, drumming against the wooden shutters. This is the routine. It isn't a collapse. It isn't a fire. It is just the long, slow Tuesday of the soul, waiting for a tomorrow that looks exactly like today, only slightly damper. You have finished your meal, and necessity forces you back out into the damp. You need to cross the bridge to the other side of the river, to the tanning district. This brings you into direct contact with the most powerful force in the late Roman Empire. No, not the barbarian hordes, not the emperor in Constantinople. You are about to encounter the guy with the clipboards. Or, in this case, the guy with the stick and the bad attitude. You approach the bridge. It is a stone arch, sturdy and ancient, but the middle of the road is blocked by a wooden barrier. It's a makeshift thing, just a heavy log resting on 2 barrels. Leaning against the barrel is a soldier. Let's look at this soldier. He is the face of authority. He is not wearing the gleaming, segmented plate armor you see in movies. That stuff was expensive and hard to maintain. This man is wearing a chainmail shirt, a lorica hamada. It looks heavy. It hangs on him like a wet sweater. The rings are dull gray, and around the armpits you can see the orange bloom of rust. The rust has stained his tunic underneath, creating a permanent orange halo around his midsection. He is wearing a helmet, but it doesn't fit him. It sits too low on his brow, forcing him to tilt his head back slightly just to see out from under the rim. This gives him a look of permanent, arrogant skepticism. He holds a spear. The wood of the shaft is splintering near his hand, wrapped in a greasy strip of leather to keep it together. He is leaning on it, taking the weight off his bad hip. As you step closer, he holds up a hand. The palm is calloused and dirty. "Halt," he says. He doesn't shout. He sighs the word. It is a command born of boredom. You stop. You wait. He takes a long time to look you over. He is chewing on something, a piece of dried meat that requires a lot of jaw work. You can hear the wet smack, smack, smack of his chewing. He swallows, wipes his mouth with the back of his hand, and points the spear at your chest. Not aggressively, just lazily. "Toll," he says. "I live here," you reply. You point back towards your tenement. "New edict," he says, staring past you at a pigeon landing on a roof. "Bridge maintenance tax. 4 nummy." You know, and he knows, that the bridge is not being maintained. You can see a missing stone in the railing right next to him, a gap that has been there since your grandfather was alive. The money isn't for the bridge. It's for him. It's for the wine he's going to drink tonight to forget that he hasn't been paid his actual salary in 6 months. This is the social hierarchy of the 5th century. It isn't a pyramid. It's a shakedown. The emperor is at the top, theoretically. But he is a distant abstraction, like the weather. Below him are the generals, who are really warlords with better PR. Below them are the bureaucrats, the curiales, who are terrified because they are personally responsible for collecting taxes that no one has the money to pay. And then, at the very bottom, standing on a muddy bridge, is this man, the limitanei, the border guard. He is yelling at you not because he hates you, but because he is miserable. He is wearing wet socks, too. He is cold, too. But he has a spear, and you don't. That is the only social currency that matters right now. You dig into your pouch. You fish out the 4 copper coins. They are warm from your body heat. You drop them into his outstretched hand. He doesn't say thank you. He doesn't even look at the coins. He just drops them into his own pouch. He jerks his head to the side, signaling you can pass. As you walk past him, you enter his personal space. You smell him. It is a pungent cocktail of stale sweat, wet wool, onions, and cheap, watered-down wine that has turned to vinegar. It is the smell of a man who gave up on ambition a decade ago. "Move along," he grumbles, "and don't walk in the center. Center is for official traffic." The center of the bridge is empty. There is no traffic. There hasn't been a chariot on this bridge all week. But you drift to the side anyway, walking in the gutter, splashing through a puddle that coats your shins in slime. Why do you obey? Because the system is designed to be just annoying enough that rebellion isn't worth the effort. If you argued, he wouldn't arrest you. That would require paperwork. He would just hit you with the shaft of the spear, or make you stand there for 3 hours while he checks the regulations. This is the tyranny of the petty official. It's the gatekeeper who closes the gate 2 minutes early because he wants to go home. It's the clerk who claims he can't read your writing, so you have to fill the form out again. You reach the other side of the bridge. You look back. He has already stopped the next person, a woman carrying a basket of laundry. You see him hold up his hand. You see him say the word, toll. You see her shoulders slump in the exact same way yours did. It is a shared choreography of defeat. You realize that in this hierarchy, everyone is yelling at the person slightly smaller than them. The general yells at the captain. The captain yells at the centurion. The centurion yells at the guard. The guard yells at you. And you? You don't have anyone to yell at. So you just yell at the weather. You mutter a curse under your breath as the drizzle turns into a proper rain. The water runs down your neck, finding that one spot on your back that you can't reach to scratch. You pull your cloak tighter. You keep walking. You have survived the encounter. You are 4 coins poorer, but you are moving. And in this slow-motion apocalypse, movement is the only victory you can hope for. The day is finally dissolving into night. The gray sky outside is deepened into a pitch black, the kind of darkness that modern cities have forgotten. There are no streetlights here. There is only the moon, hidden behind thick clouds, and the faint, flickering orange glow from the windows of those who can afford candles. You are back in your room. It is a small space, shared perhaps with family, or perhaps just shared with the dampness. You are tired. Your feet throb in time with your heartbeat. But now, it is time for the reward of the day. It is time for dinner. You move to the hearth. In a proper Roman villa there would be a kitchen, a culina, staffed by slaves. Here, in the tenement, the kitchen is a brazier, a metal box on legs standing in the corner of the room. It is a fire hazard that you sleep next to. You kneel down on the hard floor. Your knees crack. Pop, a sound that seems loud in the quiet room. You feed the fire. The wood you have is scrap. It is green, or it is wet. Probably both. As you blow on the embers, it doesn't burst into a cheerful, crackling flame. It hisses. Hiss. A plume of thick, acrid smoke billows out. It doesn't go up a chimney because there isn't one. It hits the low ceiling and rolls over you like a wave. It stings your eyes, making them water instantly. You cough, a dry, hacking cough that rattles in your chest. This is the smell of home, wood smoke and wet wool. Sitting on top of the brazier is the pot. It is a clay vessel, blackened by years of soot. It has a crack near the rim that you've patched with a bit of resin, but it still leaks a tiny, sizzling tear of liquid every now and then. Inside the pot is pottage. Pottage is the universal constant of human history. It is the culinary equivalent of a beige wall. It is what happens when you have very few ingredients and you need to make them last as long as possible. You pick up a wooden spoon. The wood is rough, stained dark by 1,000 previous meals. You stir the contents. The sound is wet and heavy. Slop, slop, gloop. Let's analyze the anatomy of this stew. The base is water. Murky river water that has been boiled long enough to hopefully kill the things that were swimming in it. Floating in the water are the pulses. Fava beans, lentils, chickpeas. They have been soaking for hours, swelling up, shedding their skins. They have boiled down into a thick, grayish mush. The texture is not smooth. It is grainy. When you eat it, the skins of the beans will stick to the roof of your mouth, requiring you to use your tongue to peel them off, again and again. There are vegetables, too. Cabbage. The eternal cabbage. It is the cockroach of the vegetable kingdom. It survives everything. It was chopped up hours ago and thrown in. Now it has lost all structural integrity. It has turned translucent, dissolving into slimy green ribbons that drape over the spoon like seaweed. Is there meat? You stir deeper, searching the bottom of the pot. Your spoon hits something hard. Clunk. Ah, the bone. It is a pork knuckle, or maybe a sheep's rib. It has been in this pot for 3 days. There is no meat left on it. It is just a ghost, haunting the soup, tasked with imparting a vague memory of animal fat to the water. You leave it there. It still has work to do for tomorrow's soup. But the most important ingredient, the thing that makes this edible, is the smell that is currently filling the room. It is a sharp, pungent, aggressive smell. It smells like low tide on a hot day. This is garum, fish sauce. It is the ketchup of the ancient world, if ketchup was made by fermenting fish intestines in the sun for 3 months until they dissolved into a salty, amber liquid. You poured a generous splash of it into the pot earlier. Why? Because the pottage has no taste. The beans are bland. The cabbage is bitter. The water is metallic. You need the garum. The saltiness hits the back of your throat, masking the taste of decay, masking the blandness, tricking your brain into thinking you are eating something rich and savory. You ladle the gray mixture into a wooden bowl. It steams, a thick, humid vapor that fogs up your face. You take your spoon. You blow on it. You take the first bite. It is hot, scorching hot. It burns the tip of your tongue, a sudden flare of pain that numbs your taste buds. But you keep eating. You chew the mush. There is sand in the lentils. There is always sand. So you chew carefully, grinding your molars cautiously to avoid cracking a tooth. The texture is slimy yet gritty. The flavor is overwhelmingly salty, with an undercurrent of boiled earth. You take a piece of your hard bread, the dense, dark loaf from the morning, and you dunk it into the stew. You hold it there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 seconds. You have to let it soak. You have to let the liquid break down the fortress of the crust. When you pull it out, the bread is soggy, dripping with gray broth. You eat it. It is heavy in your stomach. It lands with a thud. This is not dining. This is refueling. You are shoveling coal into a furnace to keep the machine running for another 12 hours. You eat in silence. Your family, if they are there, eats in silence too. There is no energy for conversation. The act of eating takes all your focus. You scrape the bottom of the bowl. The sound of wood on wood is the loudest thing in the room. You lick the spoon. You don't want to waste a single drop of calorie-dense slime. When you are finished, you feel full. But it is a heavy, sloshing fullness. You feel bloated. The beans are already beginning to ferment in your stomach, promising a night of gurgling digestion. You sit back on your heels. You stare into the dying embers of the brazier. The red glow is fading to a dull gray ash. The room is getting colder. The heat from the soup is fading from your body. You realize, as you sit there, that you have survived another day. The empire may be falling. The roads may be broken. The aqueducts may be leaking. The barbarians may be gathering at the borders. But you? You have a belly full of warm gray slush. You have a roof that only leaks in 2 places. And you have a blanket. In the grand scheme of history, this is not a triumph. It will not be recorded on a monument. But for you, tonight, it is enough. You stand up, your joints stiff, and move towards your bed. A straw mattress raised off the floor on a wooden frame to keep it away from the rats. You lie down. The straw rustles. Crinkle. Crinkle. It smells of dry grass and dust. You pull the scratchy wool blanket up to your chin. You close your eyes. And you wait for tomorrow's cue. So that was it. That was the fall of Rome. Not a bang, not a fire. Just a cold room, a blister on a toe, and a bowl of soup that tasted like the sea. It's easy to look back at this time with pity. We see the decline, the loss of knowledge, the shrinking of the world. We see the darkness closing in. But I want you to think about the resilience required to simply keep going. The people of this era didn't know they were living in the Dark Ages. They didn't know they were a footnote in a chapter about collapse. They were just people. They were mothers mending tunics. They were fathers fixing fences. They were neighbors sharing a cup of wine. They woke up every morning in a world that was slightly worse than the day before, and they decided to get out of bed anyway. They found warmth in the cold. They found flavor in the blandness. They found humor in the absurdity of the bureaucracy. There is something profoundly hopeful in that. Empires crumble. Systems fail. Economies crash. The grand structures we build eventually turn to dust and are overgrown by weeds. But the human spirit? The ability to find a comfortable spot on a straw mattress? The ability to savor a warm meal after a long, wet walk? That endures. You are part of that lineage. Whatever you faced today, whatever queues you stood in, whatever rain fell on your life, you are here. You are safe. You are warm. You have done your part. You have survived your Tuesday. Now, the history books are closed. The gates of the city are locked for the night. The noise of the market has faded away. Let the darkness wrap around you like a heavy, soft cloak. Let the sound of the rain outside remind you that you are sheltered. Sleep well, friends. Sleep well.